What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for Your Overwatch, and today we're going to be talking about Doomfist for a very good reason. On the PTR, as you probably already know, they're fixing a bunch of bugs with Doomfist, but more importantly, one of those bug fixes turns out to be quite a substantial buff in that the leniency on how wide of an angle you can hit your target into a wall to connect and potentially get that one-hit kill has been opened up a bit, meaning that he's both more potent of a character as well as more reliable, with the other bugs getting fixed as well. Another thing on top of that, I think Doomfist has some of the best synergy with the new healer Moira of any character, because characters that can really make use of having a lot of resources put into them are going to see a lot better success with Moira and her powerful burst healing. Keep that Doomfist up long enough, he'll eventually get his cooldowns back and probably just get another kill almost for free. With that being the template of today's conversation, I wanted to take a look back to the glory days of Doomfist, but probably more specifically, the end of those glory days. Because there was a segment of time for a few weeks while Doomfist had a quite forgiving hitbox on his rocket punch, allowing for insta-kills to fly around everywhere, and a lot of teams really looked strong in the pro scene playing with the Doomfist. Then that got nerfed, and so did so many of those teams with that strategy. But one team held on to it until the bitter end. Gamers Origin played what I'm going to call the swan song of the Doomfist meta, playing a series against Misfits that really went down to the wire, but more interestingly, it really put on display the types of engagements that you have with a control style team composition enabled by the enforcing punching playstyle of Doomfist versus a dive comp. And if I am right on this, and Doomfist is more playable when those bug fixes go live, this spatial control team composition could be something that teams try to run once again. It may require Junkrat getting a nerf for that to be the case, but I think all of these things are likely to be the case. And either way, we can take this opportunity to really enjoy an asymmetrical matchup for once. So with that context set, what we're going to be doing in today's video is looking at how team fights structure in this control versus dive way. What are both teams looking to accomplish, and what are the benefits and weaknesses of each strategy? And you may be asking yourself, well, which one counters the other? But that's just the thing. They both counter each other. They both have weaknesses and they both have strengths. And hopefully after digging deep into some of these clips, we're able to discern what those are. This opening team fight on King's Row shows us just about every example you can think of how these two comps want to interact and what type of play is required for each one to try to win the engagement. Gamers Origin flushed through the hotel knowing that close range engagements is where they're going to thrive. Two brawly tanks, Zarya and Reinhardt, with all the healing they ever could want, crowd control from Leaf and Hardest on the Doomfist and McCree. If Misfits even attempt to challenge them in close range, they're going to be in trouble. And what Misfits wants to do is be able to dodge the incoming crowd control from all of these different targets and create almost a Zergling-esque StarCraft 2 surround on the team fight, where they have multiple targets surrounding and attacking and poking from every angle, meaning that if the control comp team spends too much time trying to focus on one, another one can just swoop in from another angle, do critical damage, and get a frag. Generally speaking, the dive comp team wants the fight to end quickly. Not to say that they are going to rush their engagement, but the longer the fight goes on, the more often the enemy are going to get their crowd control back up, the more charged the Zarya is going to be, and the harder in general the fight's going to be to win from the dive comp side. Now, there's two things to note at this point as well. One, they're playing on King's Row, and any brawly controlling style comp is going to be favored, because what a dive comp really wants is more open space to exploit their mobility. Very good at taking advantage of high ground, flank angles, escape paths, things like that. Whereas a brawly control comp loves the streets of King's Row, where there's a minimal amount of all of those things, making it doubly more difficult for the dive comp team. Now, with all of that being said, let's rewind for a second and take another look at this and how both teams are interacting with this state of play. If you look carefully, Gamers Origin's calling is almost entirely surrounded Leaf's Doomfist cooldowns. We can tell this because every time that they're looking to set up Doomfist to rocket punch, they all move forward to make space. When he doesn't find it, he retreats back, waits for the cooldowns to reset again, they retreat with him, and thus is the footsie battle back and forth. They're looking to create an engagement with the Doomfist, but are also happy to retreat back if they don't find the opening. They're not overcommitting here. They're not just fully W-mouse one-ing with the Doomfist, we have to end the fight now, because the control comp, as the name implies, will succeed with patience and discipline, keeping their own team alive rather than forcibly looking for kills. This is especially important because even though the Doomfist doesn't find anything here, the two major stars of the team fight are Poco on the Zarya, who gets some charge and eventually is just going to be too scary of a threat for the squishy team of Misfits, but also Hardest, who eventually finds enough space to land some shots himself. Misfits do successfully dodge a lot of the crowd control effects that Gamer's Origin throw at them, but they largely lost this fight due to the amount of time they gave the enemy to set up without finishing the fight. They find trade frags here or there, but for a dive comp to succeed, isolating the carry components of the control comp are very important. You can't really let McCree stay alive into a late fight. He needed to be their first target, and because he doesn't die, Zarya gets charged. Misfits really are going to lack the punching power to come back in this fight. Now, this next engagement's really interesting because it shows us the principles of how to catch a dive. And as you might guess, the control comp is particularly equipped to be able to do this. And we're going to see that at play when Gamer's Origin really get the better of this ult exchange twofold. Misfits dive in, aggress forward with EMP, but Gamer's Origin were prepared for this and were split across the street stage here. And I don't think the EMP hit many targets, and Zarya was able to safely fall back into the alleyway and doesn't even die herself. Off screen, you see Hardest able to hit a shot onto Vic, or is it Tavik? I don't know. You guys always blast me for saying names wrong. I don't know anymore. I've heard it both ways. And upon realizing everything is going so wrong, they pop their support ults as well in response to Gamer's Origin sound barrier to try to outlast this fight, but being a man down at the start of it doesn't bode well. Frags pop off back and forth, Nano Boost and High Noon get used in the middle of the fight, and Gamer's Origin pretty soundly lands on top. And why is this? Well, control comp succeeds with really strong positioning. In the same way that Hardest was able to carry the first fight by being far too expensive to get further in the back, the positioning of Gamer's Origin made it impossible to go get him, and even though they're popping all sorts of resources in order to dive in and take the engagement, they don't find their damage quick enough, and the control play style wins out. Now, in a video talking about Doomfist, you might be surprised I'm talking about McCree so much, but the reason for that is Doomfist is the enabler to allow this playstyle to occur. He's the enforcer that really controls a lot of this space and punishes anybody that tries to get too close. And it's the play of Leaf's Doomfist that facilitates for the ranged DPS to do a lot of work. To some degree, Doomfist can only really take what the opponents give him, or else he's going to die. And he doesn't get any value if he's in the spawn room, so the control comp has to be very patient in this way, and it's more about setting up the ranged advantage and using their resources smart than it is forcing the issue with Doomfist. McCree's one of the best dive targets in the entire game, but one of the best counter dive characters is Doomfist. So as McCree sets up to go into High Noon, potentially getting bopped before he finishes the voice line, Doomfist is waiting nearby, not forcing the issue to go get kills himself, but controlling the space. And one last point on King's Row before we move on to another map is that a cool feature of control comps is that they typically always have a superior ult advantage, not necessarily by design, but just based upon how the balance of the characters that are typically involved work. Earthshatter and Graviton Surge can win teamfights on their own, whereas Self-Destruct and Primal Rage are really good, they're just not as reliable to just win an entire fight with their usage. And here around the bend, they're able to catch the aggression with Graviton Meteor Strike, aka Space Jam, something that I hope comes back with frequency in the pro scene. And whether it's that combo or even just the Earth Shatter, getting caught out against these crowd control ultimates are really the death of the dive comp. There's not really anything they can do if too much of those land. So that's why it's really important for the dive comp to have the open space to be able to dodge these abilities, but Misfits, knowing that they're an incredibly talented team, run the dive comp anyway, through and through on this map King's Row, which was picked by Gamers Origin for its strength for their type of composition, but Misfits is able to steal this map away anyway, just purely based upon their mechanical skill in playing dive comp alone. But the series wasn't a blowout. There's a reason why I am returning to it here today. Even though it looked grim for Gamers Origin going down 0-2 immediately in this series, they do start to bounce back on Hanamura, and it's pretty cool to see how these principles get played out on this map. Of course, high ground wins you the game. Get your hit scan on the high ground, especially when they pop their ult. It's clean up city in a free map. Well, with knowing that, Misfits don't want to let Gamers Origin simply set up on the high ground, but Leaf is on Logic's patrol, making sure to disallow any flanking tactics to pan out, and you have to think, fighting and controlling this space from where he's going to be the most powerful in a narrow hallway, making it the easiest for the rocket punch to land. And this is another area where I think Doomfist is just really, really strong. In these stall fights in 2CP, Doomfist is great. It really just stops a lot of annoying stall from hitting, especially if you're able to crowd control those stall characters off the point. It's even better, because if they're struggling to touch, it helps your focus fire, not to mention the speed at which Doomfist is able to kill a single target at means that you're going to be looking quite strong once you're able to set up this kind of positioning. So it's these two principles working in tandem, getting that ranged character to stay alive, and then Doomfist to fight in the muck of things where he works best. And going on to Gamers Origin defense, they're able to control this high ground much better, but largely due to the great decision making of Ben Best, who counter-dove the enemy's soldier effectively. And with no Doomfist buddy by his side, the Misfits soldier was able to basically be silenced in his effectiveness, and it's the difference of that playstyle failing versus the control playstyle of Gamers Origin succeeding that gave the map over to Gamers Origin. We've been able to cover the major themes of how these comps interact, but now this matchup on Dorado really shows the win condition for either style of play. On this opening fight on Dorado, Misfits drastically improves their target selection, and when they dive, they seem to have a bit more purpose than when we looked back at the King's Row example. Here they're targeting the McCree and the Ana first because they are the most diveable targets. They have the least amount of mobility to get away, and picking up those easy frags immediately pulls the rug out from under the control comp, because of course keeping the hit scan alive is what allowed for the control comp to carry throughout the mid fight. If say Misfits targeted just about anything else, it may have taken them too long in order to get those kills, allowing for time for Hardest to hit some shots and trade back and then carry out and control the engagement. Taking out those key components made it easy. But going into the overtime round, Gamers Origin really cleaned up their positioning on this next defense. Being just a few meters further away when this dive comes in is all the difference. McCree and Ana are about a Winston leap and a half away from the cart. That's a very important metric to think about when you're playing some of these characters that are so diveable, Ana and McCree in particular. Because when the dive comes in, McCree and Ana have that buffer of space away from the engagement, they're able to catch the dive, and the Doomfist comes in, is able to get a punch on the Lucio. They keep their hit scan alive, fight goes easy, dive caught, engagement over. But after trading back and forth a little bit, and in the last 30 seconds, they're looking to set up their dive once again. How do they do it this time, though, in order to succeed with it? Well, the sound barrier landing, as the mobility characters are mid-stride, buffers the engagement for the dive comp, meaning that they can take multiple hits before they get to the spot where they need to be, and then once they get there, they have either full health or enough resources in order to find the frags in front of them, and then the fights broke out, the hit scans removed, and when that happens, it's easy cleanup for the dive comp. But although it looks exciting and Misfits might be on their way to have a miracle overtime push, Gamers Origin just has way too many ultimates. They're able to leverage their improved point presence with the Zarya-Rein combo, putting the nano boost on the Reinhardt, which may have not been a great call if it wasn't in overtime. They have to have something on the cart in overtime, so So the Nano Rhine is allowed to eat them alive on Cart, and the other ultimates of Gamers Origin land, and they win this map. Now, unfortunately for our Control Comp friends, they go over to Ilios to break the tie, and you're really going to struggle to compete with the raw mechanical power that Misfits brings to the table on these control stages. The issue was the first map, Oasis, heavily went into favor for Misfits because Gamers Origin refused to play the Pharah Mira matchup. Well, that didn't pan out too well for them on Oasis, and their Deathball-y control style comp struggles to control anything if Pharah controls the air. I think they could have got it to work if they ran a Diva. For whatever reason, they weren't on Oasis, but they learned their lesson, went to the mirror matchup on Ilios, and although they had some shining moments, Misfits just played at a tempo that Gamers Origin couldn't reach, outfragged them on the frag-centric game type, and ended up winning the series. And because Misfits ultimately won the series, I think many players may have forgot how interesting that this series was. Gamers Origin didn't end up making the playoffs, but they really showed us an interesting approach to competitive Overwatch, and something that I think we all, as fans of the game, would love to see more often. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, please leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day, so you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Linked in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.